What's going on, friends? Welcome back to College Sports Corner. It's Thursday afternoon. We got the rest of this day and tomorrow, and the weekend is here. Thank God. I'm sure some of you have already checked out of work. If you have, good for you. Keep faking that work when the boss walks by. We're going to go over week 4. We're going to preview the games coming up, go over some news. Before we start, hit that subscribe button down there so you don't miss anything. Hey, you don't have to watch it, just listen to it. What you can do at work, because like I said, we've already all checked out of work by now, Thursday afternoon. Act like you're working, listen to it in the background. What can be better than acting like you're working and listening to some college football talk? And hey, when the boss walks by, he's going to look in there and say, man, look at John. Look at him, he's a go-getter. He's going to get a raise. And all along, you're just faking working and listening to college football talk. Win-win. You can't lose in this situation. All right, let's go over some news. Everybody's probably heard by now, Herm Edwards is out at Arizona State after that Eastern Michigan loss on Saturday night. Running back coach Sean Agano, he's going to be the interim coach. Edwards was there for 4 years. He went 46-26. NCAA inquiries into recruiting violations. 5 assistant coaches and numerous players have transferred out because of that. When he first got hired, I was like, what? But then again, anything was good at that point. And I was actually impressed with what he did the first couple of years there. Looked like maybe he was starting to build a program, and then all this other stuff happened, and they had enough of it. And evidently there's a video. People are claiming he's getting fired right there on the field, right after the game. Don't know. I haven't heard any audio from that video, if there is even any audio out there. Maybe it happened there, maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, Herm Edwards out, and Sean Agano, the running backs coach, he'll be the interim coach. No word on who they're looking for, but I'm sure they're looking by now. Another one got fired. Nebraska defensive coordinator Eric Cheander, after that Oklahoma loss on Saturday. He's out. I didn't catch who's going to replace him for the next few games or whatever, but he's gone too. Boston College right tackle Kevin Klein out for the season, torn ACL. BC is down to 3 offensive linemen and a tight end, so their offensive line is very depleted. Minnesota wide receiver Chris Altman-Bell out for the season, lower leg injury. He's going to have surgery on that. Man, sucks when you get injured this early in the season. So hope you guys get better soon, man. Texas linebacker DeMarvion Overshawn arrested on pot possession. No pot's legal in a lot of states. Here in Texas, it's pretty frowned upon still. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just like everybody. I smoked pot back when I was younger, and I don't know, never did anything for me. Just made me hungry and sleepy. So to me, pot's no big deal. Now if there's something like meth or fentanyl, whatever, then yeah, something like that. But I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if he's going to be suspended or what. I haven't heard anything about that, but he got arrested for it. Hey, here's a little fun fact after this downer news I've given you. Traditional basketball powerhouses, Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, and North Carolina, are all 3-0 in football. Pretty cool, huh? Last bit of news here. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State said they are moving on from Bedlam. When OU leaves for the SEC here, I don't know what's going to be next year or the year after. Oklahoma State coach Mike Gundy, who's not shy about saying what he thinks, says, I want somebody to give me an example of what Oklahoma State had to do with this. This was someone else's decision. I didn't hear if somebody's blaming Oklahoma State for all this or what, but he's saying, show me an example of how it's our fault. These things happen. I mean, when A&M bolted for the SEC, the Texas A&M game, which had been going on for years, big rivalry here, that was over with, although I think they're going to pick it up here again in a few years. So it sucks. Bedlam's over, but maybe they'll find a way to start playing it again. It's really become a pretty good rivalry since Gundy's come along. So hopefully they'll find a way to renew that and get it back going. Hey, guess what? You're not going to believe this. We have college football tonight. The last 2 Thursdays I think we've had FCS games. That first week, the NFL starts, first NFL Thursday night game. I don't know why college doesn't play anyway. But It's the first time since that Thursday before Labor Day we've had FBS college football. So tonight we will have West Virginia 1-2 at Va Tech 2-1. That'll be on ESPN 7:30 Eastern. West Virginia is averaging 511 yards. Va Tech is averaging 366 yards. Both teams are pushing 200 yards already in penalties this year. Another one we got Coastal Carolina 3-0 at Georgia State 0-3. ESPNU at 7:30 Eastern. Coastal Carolina averaging 432 total yards a game. Georgia State's averaging 445 total yards a game. Georgia State has 31 penalties for 253 yards this year already. Might be a big reason why they're 0-3. Chattanooga 3-0 at Illinois 2-1. This might be a decent game. Big Ten Network 8:30 Eastern. Chattanooga's averaging 424 yards a game. Illinois 440 a game. Illinois' got a better rushing game, but Chattanooga's got a better passing game. Could be, like I said, could be a good game. Something we're checking out on Thursday night. Moving on tomorrow, Friday, Virginia 2-1 at Syracuse 3-0. ESPN 7 p.m. Eastern. Virginia's averaging 413 yards a game. Syracuse is averaging 407 yards a game. Brendan Armstrong for Virginia, 710 passing yards, but only 2 touchdowns and 3 picks so far this year. Where Syracuse's Schrader, 705 passing yards and 8 touchdowns. That might be one worth checking out. Nevada 2-2 at Air Force 2-1. That'll be on FS1, 8 p.m. Eastern. Nevada's averaging 139 rushing yards, 152 passing yards, and 290 total yards a game. They've already racked up 230 yards in penalties in their 4 games. So, Air Force averaging 396 rushing yards, only 73 passing yards. They've always been a running team anyway. For 469 total yards, they're averaging every game. And the last one, we got a late game on Friday night. Boise State 2-1 at UTEP 1-3. CBS Sports 9:30 Eastern. Boise State's averaging 319 total yards a game. UTEP's actually right behind them at 311 total yards a game. But Boise State, they've gotten 82 first downs this year. UTEP's only gotten 52. So, and UTEP's also racked up almost 250 yards in penalties in their 4 games. Could be a real reason why they're 1-3. All right, Saturday early in the day. There's a few good games early in the morning. You might have to bust out multiple screens. One that I'm going to watch because this could be pretty interesting. Noon Eastern on ABC. Number 5 Clemson 3-0 and number 21 Wake Forest 3-0. Clemson's averaging 425 yards a game. Wake Forest 434 total yards a game. Clemson outrushes Wake Forest. They got more rushing yards, but Wake Forest outpasses Clemson. They got better passing yards. Why isn't this game on prime time? I mean, that's you look at some of these games, like I guess the time and stuff is set ahead of the schedule, but still, I think it should be moved to prime time. Another one that could be pretty good, Rhode Island FCS team. They're 2-1, and Pitt is 2-1. That's going to be on the ACC network at noon. You know, FCS teams, they're always looking to upstage the FBS ones and beat them, pulling upsets so people will talk about them. You never know. They're Pitt and Rhode Island. They're pretty close on their numbers. Rhode Island, 161 rushing yards they average. Pitt, 152 rushing yards they average. Passing for Rhode Island, 235. Passing for Pitt, 254. Total yards, 396 for Rhode Island and 405 for Pitt. Rhode Island has 64 first downs this year. Pitt has 63 first downs this year. Hey, if you don't watch the game, you're like, Rhode Island. Just keep an eye on the score, see what happens. This could get pretty interesting. Another one, ESPN2, noon Eastern. Number 17 Baylor, 2-1 at Iowa State, who's 3-0 this year. Baylor's averaging 454 yards a game. Iowa State 415. Baylor's pushing 250 yards of penalties already this year in 3 games. So, hey, there's another one. Be a hell of a basketball game, but it could be a hell of a football game too. Duke 3-0 at Kansas 3-0. FS1, noon Eastern. Duke's Riley Leonard, 723 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions so far. For Kansas, Jaden Daniels, 566 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, and an interception. But he's also run for 237 yards and 3 touchdowns. So Duke's averaging 460 total yards. KU is averaging 453 total yards. Like I said, it's a great basketball game. Looks like it might be a hell of a football game. So, like I said, if you don't watch it, keep an eye on the score. It could be pretty interesting. Another one, Maryland 3-0. Number 4, Michigan 3-0. That'll be on Fox at noon Eastern. Maryland's averaging 189 rushing yards. Michigan's averaging 231 rushing yards. Maryland's averaging 312 passing yards. Michigan 266 passing yards. Maryland averaging 501 yards total. Michigan 498. Kind of even there, so that might be a pretty good game. Maryland's playing some good ball. Talua from Maryland, 895 passing yards, 6 touchdowns. Michigan's Blake Corum, he's rushed for 235 yards and 7 touchdowns this year. So, see what I mean? Some of these early games, you might have to get out multiple screens. I know I'm going to have to. No, Central Michigan 1-2 at number 14 Penn State 3-0. That'll be on Big Ten Network at noon. Central Michigan's Daniel Richardson, 909 passing yards, 7 touchdowns. Sean Clifford for Penn State, 673 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. And Clifford can also take a hit. If you saw that Auburn game, they walloped his ass and he got back up and kept on playing. So the guy's pretty damn tough. Buffalo 0-3 at Eastern Michigan, 2-1. That'll be on CBS Sports at noon Eastern. Both quarterbacks in that game, their stats are pretty close. If you're a Buffalo or Eastern Michigan fan, I'm sure you're going to watch it. Let's see what else we got here. Missouri 2-1 at Auburn 2-1. This matchup here is pretty even. That'll be on ESPN at noon Eastern. Missouri is averaging 204 rushing yards. Auburn's averaging 205 rushing yards. Missouri 218 passing yards. Auburn 225 passing yards a game. And total yards 422 for Missouri, 430 for Auburn. Missouri 61 first downs this year. Auburn 63 first downs this year. The only difference is Mizzou does have 66 more yards and penalties. So like I said, kind of an even matchup. Might be pretty good to watch too. Bowling Green 1-2 at Mississippi State 2-1. That'll be on SEC Network at noon Eastern. Both teams are average under 100 yards rushing a game. It's all done through the air with these two teams. So TCU 2-0 at SMU 2-1. ESPNU noon Eastern. TCU better rushing game, but SMU's got a better passing game. Only a 5-yard difference in total yard averages per game with these two. This one here, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, I think they call it the Skillet game, Skillet Bowl, Skillet match, I forget. But, a little side note here, in case you didn't know or you forgot, TCU's coach Sonny Dykes coached at the rival SMU for 3 years. So he came across town and said, I'm going to coach here, and probably some bitter fans about that. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm just guessing. CSS, I guess that's Comcast Sports something, noon Eastern. South Florida 1-2 at Louisville 1-2. ESPN Plus 2 p.m. Eastern. UMass 1-2 at Temple 1-2. Pac-12 Network 2 p.m. Eastern. UCLA 3-0 at Colorado 0-3. Poor Colorado the last few years, they just, man. ESPN Plus 2 p.m. Eastern. Fordham 3-0 at Ohio 1-2. Could it be an FCS upset? I don't know, maybe. ABC 3:30 Eastern. Notre Dame 1-2 at North Carolina 3-0. Notre Dame got back on the winning track, but can they continue it, especially at North Carolina? ACC Network 3:30 Eastern. Middle Tennessee 2-1 at number 25 Miami 2-1. Miami's got better rushing yards and passing yard averages than Middle Tennessee does. So plus they're probably pissed off at losing to A&M. So they're gonna bounce back and probably slaughter them. Let's see, Big Ten Network, 3:30 Eastern. Minnesota 3-0 at Michigan State 2-1. Looks like it could be a pretty good Big Ten matchup. Minnesota. They rush the ball better than Michigan State. But Michigan State throws the ball better than Minnesota. 550 total yards average for Minnesota, and Michigan State 430. Minnesota, they've got 95 first downs this year. Michigan State's only got 73. But hey, 73, that's a lot better than a lot of schools. So, in Minnesota, they've only got 88 yards of penalties so far this year, where Michigan State's got 111. So, if you watch that game, keep an eye on that stat there. Number 20, Florida, 2-1. At Tennessee, 3-0. CBS SEC Game of the Week at 3:30 Eastern. Florida's averaging 212 rushing yards. Tennessee, 182 rushing yards. Florida averages 141 passing yards. Tennessee, 371. Florida, 353 total yards a game, where Tennessee, 554. Hendon Hooker for Tennessee, 884 passing yards and 6 touchdowns already this year. Tennessee's got 236 yards in penalties so far this year. So that's something, some of the coaches are pissed off about, but hey, they're a good team. This game years ago used to decide the East, if you remember, or if you didn't know. Yeah, this game here usually decided who was going to win the East. Kind of fallen off the last few years. Tennessee's been down. Florida was up. Now, I'm not about ready to say Tennessee is a hell of a lot better than Florida, but they're a little bit on the upper more than Florida is. But hey, it's a rivalry game. These kids all know it, so they're all going to play pretty tough, I'm sure. Let's see here. Texas, number 22, Texas 2-1. Texas Tech 2-1. Texas Tech has always given them a game there in Lubbock. That'll be on ESPN, 3:30 Eastern. Texas averages 170 rushing yards a game. Texas Tech 101. Texas averages 234 passing yards a game. Texas Tech averages 374 in the passing game. 404 total yards is what Texas averages a game. Texas Tech 475 total yards. Texas Tech's Donovan Smith, 786 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this year. Taj Brooks has 4 rushing touchdowns. UT's Bijan Robinson, 311 rushing yards so far and 5 touchdowns. So that might be a pretty good one to put. If you're going to watch the Florida-Tennessee game, put this one on the other screen just to keep an eye on it. Toledo 2-1 at San Diego State 1-2. That's on FS1 at 3:30 Eastern. Indiana 3-0 at Cincinnati. At Cincinnati 2-1. ESPN 2 at 3:30 Eastern. Might be interesting. Cincinnati, not as good as they were last year, but they're still good enough. Indiana's team kind of on the rise there. Plus Connor Basilick for Indiana, 891 passing yards and 5 touchdowns this year so far. Cincy's Ben Bryant, 863 passing yards and 7 touchdowns this year. So, might be a pretty good game. Cincy does have an edge in average rushing yards per game. Slight edge in passing yards too. But hey, might be a pretty good one to keep an eye on. North Texas 2-2 at Memphis 2-1. That'll be on ESPN Plus at 3:30 Eastern. Another game on ESPN Plus at 3:30 Eastern. James Madison 2-0 at Appalachian State 2-1. CBS Sports at 3:30. Florida International 1-1 at Western Kentucky, who is 2-1. Stadium TV, which I've watched a couple games on Stadium TV. I know they got a website, but I just watch it through Facebook. They're pretty good at broadcasting games. Texas Southern at 1-2 at UTSA 1-2, which crazy that UTSA is 1-2 after that year they had last year. Plus the quarterback Harris has passed for almost 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns so far. So I don't know what's happened to him. Interesting game here. Fox, 4 p.m. Eastern. Number 15, Oregon 2-1 at Washington State 3-0. Oregon averaging 205 rushing yards a game. Washington State only 114. Oregon 247 passing yards a game. Washington State 238. And the total yards average per game, 452 for Oregon, 353 for Washington State. The first downs here. Oregon's gotten 85 first downs this year. Washington State only 51. So quarterbacks, Bo Nix for Oregon, 672 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Cameron Ward for the Cougars, 715 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Things look a little even here, and they're playing in Washington State at Pullman. So, hey, you never know. I mean, Washington State went and beat Wisconsin, so why couldn't they maybe beat Oregon at home? So, we'll see. SEC Network, 4 p.m. Eastern. Tulsa 2-1 at Ole Miss 3-0. Tulsa actually has better passing yard averages per game than Ole Miss does. Davis Brin for Tulsa, 1,206 passing yards and 11 touchdowns this year. Jackson Dart for Ole Miss, 543 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Might be one to keep an eye on. You never know. No TV found for this one, but it's at 4 p.m. Eastern anyway. Sacramento State 2-0 at Colorado State 0-3. Might be why there's no TV. I don't know. ESPNU at 4 p.m. Eastern. Georgia Tech 1-2 at Central Florida 2-1. Pac-12 Network 5:30 Eastern. Arizona 2-1 at Cal 2-1. If you told me to watch this game last spring, I'd be like, "What are you high? Why?" But these two teams aren't too bad this year. Might be one to check out, or if you don't, like I say, keep an eye on the score on your phone because you never know. I mean, Arizona's averaging 122 rushing yards. Cal's averaging 117 rushing yards a game. Passing yards, Arizona averages 268. Cal averages 243. Total yards, Arizona averages 390. Cal averages 360. Arizona's Jane DeLora, 748 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. California's Jack Plummer, 738 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So you see what I'm saying? This might be a game to watch, but if you would have asked me back spring, I'd be like, quit the fentanyl. I mean, but this might actually be a game to watch. So, Rice 2-1 and U of H 1-2. That is on ESPN Plus at 6 Eastern. The Bayou Bucket is what they call the trophy up for grabs down the road in Houston. Houston 1-2. That's crazy. You figure these records would be switched because Rice, they'll have like one decent year and then one really good year, and then they'll be flatlined for the next 5, 6, 7 years. So I guess this could be Rice's year. I don't know, to go to a bowl game again. But yeah, you figure Rice would be 1-2 and U of H would be 2-1 or even 3-0. It's not the way it is this year. Crazy. ESPN Plus, 6 p.m. Eastern. Navy 0-2 against Eastern Carolina, 2-1. ESPN Plus, 6 p.m. Eastern. Ball State 1-2 at Georgia Southern, 2-1. Another game on ESPN Plus, 6 p.m. Eastern. Akron 1-2 at Liberty, 2-1. Liberty's averaging 425 total yards a game. Another one on the ESPN Plus, 6 p.m. Eastern. Arkansas State 1-2 at Old Dominion 1-2. Old Dominion's already ranked up 225 yards in penalties this year. Speaking of ESPN Plus, now you just got to pay for it. Remember a few years ago you could watch games on the ESPN website for free? Now they want you to pay, I don't know, $5-6 a month. It's $5-6, but still, when it was free, years back. Hell, I remember I watched games like Maine versus, whoever, Rob Morris, FCS games, Rob Morris versus whoever for free on there. Now they want you to pay for it. I guess the evil empire Disney wants its money. FS1, 7 p.m. Eastern. This might be a tough game. Iowa 2-1 at Rutgers 3-0. Rutgers is playing pretty good ball. Well, we've seen with Iowa, they've had one game of good offense. The rest of them was just, what the hell is this? Yeah, I mean, does this make or break for Iowa? If they go 2-2, the heat's really going to be on Kirk Ferentz. I mean, the people are like, we need to get a new coach in there, one that's younger, hipper, or whatever, what people say. But if they can beat them, if they can beat this 3-0 Rutgers team at Piscataway, New Jersey, man, people might start liking Ferentz again. CBS Sports, 7 p.m. Eastern, UNLV 2-1, Utah State 1-2. Another one where I figured the records would be reversed because UNLV's hasn't really been that good. Utah State's been a pretty damn good team the last several years. How they're 1-2, I'm not sure. UNLV's averaging 480 total yards, where Utah State's only averaging 320. And they got a good quarterback, Logan Bonner. I don't know what's going on there at Utah State. ESPN 2, 7 p.m. Eastern. Northern Illinois 1-2 at Kentucky, 3-0. Will Levis for Kentucky, 882 passing yards and 6 touchdowns so far this year. ESPN, no, that's not. Is that ESPN? Yeah, that's ESPN. Sometimes I can't read my writing, so I write so fast. 7 p.m. Eastern. Number 10, Arkansas 2-0. At number 23, Texas A&M 2-1. I guess that game's going to be in Dallas at Jerry's World. Arkansas averaging 244 rushing yards, A&M 108. Arkansas averaging 257 passing yards, A&M averaging 208. 500 yards total average for Arkansas, 316 for Texas A&M. Arkansas has already racked up 243 yards on penalties, A&M 170. I'm going to go ahead and say, because I'm an A&M fan, they're not going to win this game. Lost to App State. Barely beat Miami, which is understandable because Miami's a good team. Unless some kind of miracles happen in practice and Johnson is looking like the best quarterback in the nation, I just don't think they're going to win. If they do, I will be totally shocked and surprised, and I will be ecstatic. But like I said, just the way they played, I mean, we really don't know how good Miami is anyway. I mean, they haven't played all that great of talent this year. When they get into ACC play, we'll probably see, did A&M beat a good team or they beat a middle-of-the-road team. But, I still see A&M winning this game. I'm going to watch it anyway because I'm an Aggie fan. But if this starts getting out of hand, I'll be like, all right, find another one. ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Eastern, Southern Miss 1-2 against Tulane, 3-0. Tulane's averaging 421 total yards a game. They're a pretty good team. Houston Baptist 1-1 at Texas State 1-2. That's on ESPN Plus at 7 p.m. Eastern. Good old ESPN Plus that you have to pay for now. All right. Hey, the NFL Network, they got a game. Marshall 2-1 at Troy 1-2. 7 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network. Troy's 1-2, but the quarterback Gunnar Watson has passed for 928 yards and 5 touchdowns this year. He has thrown 4 picks. Could be a real big reason why they're 1-2, but still, he's got decent numbers. I don't know, it's crazy they're 1-2. ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Eastern. Louisiana Tech 1-2. South Alabama 2-1. The CSS again, like I said, I guess it's Comcast Sports, 7:30 Eastern. UConn 1-3 at number 12, North Carolina State 3-0. Speaking of North Carolina State, did you see where the North Carolina quarterback said, people go to North Carolina State because they can't get into North Carolina? A lot of big stuff been made about that, how he apologized and stuff. But to me, that's just normal trash talk. I mean, for years, Notre Dame says people go to Boston College because they can't get into Notre Dame, and stuff is said about USC, UCLA. To me, that's just regular trash talk. I personally wouldn't have said it because I don't want to piss off the other team and give them some extra fuel for the fire. But, I think a lot of people are making a bigger deal out of it than it is. Teams trash talk each other all the time. Big Ten Network, 7:30 Eastern. Miami of Ohio, 1-2 at Northwestern, 1-2. Northwestern averages 473 total yards a game. They got a great passing game, but their running game is just okay. I figured Hull will be a lot better this year than he has been, but anyway. It's at home in Evanston. They can win and be at 500. ABC 7:30 Eastern. Wisconsin 2-1 at number 3. Ohio State 3-0. Wisconsin averages 218 rushing yards a game. Ohio State averages 207. Passing yards per game. Wisconsin averages 260. Ohio State 358. Total yards. Wisconsin averages 479. Ohio State 565. Wisconsin's Graham Mertz, 697 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions this year. C.J. Stroud for Oklahoma State, 941 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Pretty impressive. Wisconsin's Braylon Allen, he's got 5 rushing touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr. for Ohio State has 5 touchdown catches. You would think, looking at these numbers and these stats, this game might be pretty even and a pretty good game. I don't know. It's hard to play in the horseshoe at night. You never know, but you never know. You never know what can happen. We've all seen crazy crap happen in college football. Big Ten Network, 7:30 Eastern. Florida Atlantic 2-2 at Purdue 1-2. Aidan O'Connell for Purdue, 991 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, and an interception. Nakase Perry for Florida Atlantic, 987 passing yards, 10 touchdowns. And he's got one more interception than O'Connell does. Total yards, FAU 472, Purdue 477. Kind of evenly matched teams. Can Florida Atlantic go there to West Lafayette and steal a victory? Maybe. ESPNU 7:30 Eastern. Charlotte 1-3 at South Carolina 1-2. SEC Network 7:30 Eastern. Vandy back on the winning track after they lost the game 3-1 at number 2 Alabama 3-0. Vandy 217 rushing yards a game they average. Bama 237. Passing yards for Vandy they average 220. Bama averages 243. Total yards a game average. Vanderbilt 437. Alabama 481. Numbers are kind of even there. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything, but Vanderbilt swung 452 passing yards, 6 touchdowns. Bama's Young 644 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Maybe Vanderbilt could make this thing interesting, huh? At least, hey, not the whole game, at least the first half, maybe. Because, I mean, look, how many teams have we seen Bama play, and those teams play Bama tough in the first half? Sometimes even in the third quarter. I think it was last year. Ole Miss, man, they gave Bama a game for, 3.5 quarters, and they just kind of fell apart. You never know. Vanderbilt might do the same, and people are laughing, Vanderbilt, yeah, whatever, man, you're stupid. Hey, you never know. I mean, who knows? ESPN Plus, 7:30 Eastern. New Mexico 2-1 at LSU 2-1. LSU has more total yards average a game, also better passing and rushing than New Mexico. But still, New Mexico's 2-1, and if we see anything in college football, team will take the lower team or the team they think is the lower, take them lightly. At about halftime, they're sitting in the locker room. Man, we better wake up. We're going to lose. So who knows? ACC Network, 8 p.m. Eastern. Boston College 1-2 at Florida State 3-0. Boston College only averages 48 rushing yards a game. Passing 251, so that's a lot better, but still. Where FSU averages 242 rushing yards and 253 passing yards. But hey, how do you say his name? Jurkovec for Boston College, 738 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but still, that's not bad. Travis for FSU, 624 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and interception. I don't think Boston College will beat them, but maybe they can make the game interesting. Fox, 8 p.m. Eastern. Kansas State 2-1 at Oklahoma 3-0. Traditionally, Kansas State has given OU fits more times in Manhattan than Norman, but they have given them fits in Norman before. Might be one checking out. Worth checking out. FLOF. I've seen that before. I'm not sure if that's a website or an app or whatever. 8 p.m. Eastern. Hawaii 1-3 New Mexico State 0-4. Maybe that's why that game is on FLOF and not the primetime game for ESPN or somebody. ESPN Plus, 8 p.m. Eastern. Louisiana 2-1. The Louisiana Monroe 1-2. Both teams averaged just under 100 yards of rushing. So, and hey, speaking of Hawaii, how they screwed us. We don't get their late games anymore. Once again, third week in a row, we don't need them. Check out these games we got, late games we got here. They might be pretty good. Pac-12 Network, 9:30 Eastern. Number 7, USC, 3-0 at Oregon State, 3-0. USC averages 202 rushing yards a game. Oregon State averages 109. Passing yards, USC averages 318. Oregon State 278. Total yards, USC 520. Oregon State 468. Not even, but close in numbers. USC's Williams, 874 passing yards, 8 touchdowns. Oregon State's Nolan, 746 passing yards, 7 touchdowns. And they're playing in Corvallis. In at night, so, we're checking out, I think. I'm probably going to. ESPN 2, 10:15 Eastern. Wyoming 3-1 at BYU, 2-1. Wyoming's got the better rushing game, but BYU has got the better passing game in this one. Wyoming averages 312 total yards a game, where BYU averages 436. Might be one we're checking out. CBS Sports Network, 10:30 Eastern. Western Michigan 1-2. San Jose State 1-1. I said some of these late games are interesting, not all of them. So, ESPN, 10:30 Eastern. Number 13, Utah, 2-1 at Arizona State, 1-2. I always say keep an eye on a team that plays a week after their coach got fired. Said last week, Nebraska, they came out on fire for quarter and a half, 2 quarters. Looked like they're going to make a game of it, and then just kind of fell apart. Keep an eye on it. Utah lost to Florida, Florida's not great this year, but they're good. You never know how the Sun Devils are going to play. They might be inspired. There might be things going on behind the scenes there with Herm Edwards we don't know about. This team is like, oh, thank God he's gone. Let's have fun. So, hey, and it's at home. Crowd's going to be jacked up because, half the crowd liked Herm Edwards. Half the crowd didn't, which that may be off. And maybe, a quarter of the crowd still liked Herm Edwards. Utah does outrush and outpass Arizona State. But, hey, might be one to keep an eye on. Late game I'm really looking forward to because I'm a fan of Washington also. FS1, 10:30 Eastern. Yes, like I said, who needs Hawaii? Go play on your little app or website or whatever. Stanford 1-1. Stanford's a tough team. They don't mess around. At number 18, Washington 3-0. Stanford averages 195 rushing yards. Washington averages 160. Passing yards, Stanford averages 274, where Washington averages 389. Total yards a game, 469 for Stanford, 548 for Washington. Washington's Penix Jr., 1,709 passing yards so far this year, 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. I've been a fan of Washington since I was a kid. It wasn't my live or die with team. I just been watching them since I was a kid. Always fascinated by them through the Don James years when they were a national powerhouse into the 90s, which weren't all that good. And back with Rick Neuheisel, when he was coach there, he had them back up there taking them to the Rose Bowl. I'm not saying this Washington team is good. Not even as good as the Rick Neuheisel teams, but they look like they're on their way back up there. And if they keep doing this, they could be back up there with those teams like in the 90s with Don James when they were a national powerhouse and winning conference championships, Rose Bowl, national championship. So as a Washington fan, I'm excited about this team. I like what I've seen. Anything's better than last year. Man, that team last year, you put 11 coffee tables out on the field, and it's going to be more interesting than that Washington team last year under, what's his name, Jimmy Lake. So, yeah. That's going to be a late game. I'm going to be happy sitting up till 1 or 2 in the morning having, adult beverage. staying up late and watching that game. That's going to be pretty interesting. Hopefully Washington wins. That is it. If you're going to fake the way through the rest of the day and work, you're going to have to do it some other way. Maybe watch some other YouTube videos. I don't know. Anyway, we'll be back Sunday, I don't know, maybe around noon sometime to recap what happened today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Weekend's almost here. A few more hours today, tomorrow, and then it's here, thank God. Anyway, stay busy, be safe, don't do anything stupid, and we'll see you back on Sunday.